Voice actors from your favorite anime, video games, and cartoons are playing Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition every Wednesday on a new podcast called The Dungeon Booth. The first 11 episodes bring together the English voice actors from the hit anime series My Hero Academia, including the voices of Eraserhead, Chargebolt, Mandalay of the Wild Wild Pussycats, and the Invisible Girl. In the Dungeon Booth, these voice actors become original player characters in a wheels-off D&D adventure full of combat, discovery, intrigue, amateurish attempts at romance, and professionally timed fart jokes. And when each game ends, the next game begins with an all-new entertaining cast of voice actors ready to jump into the booth. So go listen today and every Wednesday on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, or on their website at thedungeonbooth.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Dungeoncast. I'm Will.
I'm Brian.
This is a podcast where we talk about everything Dungeons & Dragons, from enchanted equipment to eternal empires. And today, we're going to the elemental planes.
It's happening.
The Dungeoncast. Hey Brian.
Atlas Exteris?
Atlas Exteris indeed. It's been a while.
Take me away.
Let us go. So on this show, we've talked about more than a few of the outer planes. You know, we've talked about the Nine Hells, we've talked about the Abyss, we've talked about Celestia, and we've talked about the material planes as well. We've talked about the Shadowfell, the Feywild, and I mean, we talk about the Prime all the time. But we've really neglected an entire other major category of planes.
Oh, yeah, we have.
The inner planes.
Right.
Which are like kind of like the main barrier between the material and the outer planes. And they are the elemental planes.
That planar lubricant.
Indeed, that planar lubricant, indeed. So the inner planes, again, they form a buffer between the material planes and the outer planes. They surround and enfold the Prime and its echoes, providing the raw materials from which all worlds are made.
Cool. So you know how you build a town, you need raw materials?
This is where you go.
The Prime Material Plane is a big town.
Indeed.
Really
Indeed
big
it
town.
is. It's the biggest town, in fact. So there are four elemental planes, air, water, earth, and fire, that form a ring around the Prime and are themselves actually suspended and surrounded by a fifth realm called the Elemental Chaos.
Nice. Okay.
Now, this is the 5th edition Cosmos map, if you will.
All right.
And I actually think it's really cool. Probably, honestly, to me, it's the best map out of each edition. But let's talk about the way it's kind of worked. So the inner planes have gone through quite a few major changes through the editions. Originally, there were 6 major inner planes. There was air, water, earth, fire, and then there were negative and positive.
Okay.
So
So just like Last Airbender, pretty much. That's like the lore there.
I guess so. I'm not sure. Again, you would know.
They expand on it in Legend of Korra a little bit, but...
Well, it's not just as simple as those 6 major planes, because furthermore, where each of these planes touched, they made another plane. So where the elemental planes touched, they formed what are called the 4 para-elemental planes of smoke, ice, ooze, and magma.
I was like, that's where lava benders come from.
Oh shit, okay.
Fire, earth touching.
But furthermore, the positive and negative planes touch all 4 elemental planes as well, and they form the 8 quasi-elemental planes of lightning, steam, radiance, minerals, vacuum, salt, ash, and dust.
You're losing me.
I know, it's getting more complex.
So are there like subplanes because they're rubbing together?
Basically, no, they cause demiplanes where they touch.
Okay, so it creates a brand new plane of existence.
Exactly.
So whatever barriers exist to cross into planes here or there, they exist in these subplanes, if you will, or these quasi-planes.
I guess so.
Okay.
So, yeah. Anyways. As a matter of fact, the idea of the elemental chaos didn't even exist until 4th edition. And it's a completely unique thing. And honestly, the elemental chaos in 4th edition is nothing like the one in 5th edition.
It's like a layer over them all. Is that like a good accurate way to picture them?
For the chaos?
Yeah. Like if you have the material plane in the middle and there's these planes like surrounding the outside, there would be this ring that encompasses like a layer over them all.
I mean, it's complicated because it's not really supposed to be within the realm of like human understanding.
Okay.
Because it's not operating like 3 dimensions.
Got it. Okay.
But
so it's hard to.
We will talk about the current structure. But first I want to talk about the past ones, just so people know like how it kind of used to be and how you can do it if you want to do it this way too. So furthermore, these 16 inner planes were so extremely pure that they essentially were uninhabitable almost completely. So like the elemental plane air was just sky.
That's right. We talked about that in the Aarakocra episode.
Right.
Like, how do you get there?
Right.
Live there?
Exactly.
It was like Cloud Town.
The elemental plane of water was just water. Fire plane, universe of fire. Earth, literally no air to breathe, even if you're in the caverns. There is no air.
That's how I pictured the water plane too. But like, there has to be because of the chemical nature of water.
Right, exactly.
I guess, okay.
The water one would have to be breathable.
All right,
so only like elementals and other magical bullshit could be existing there. When we got to 4E, they did away with the inner planes completely. Just said, fuck that noise. And they made it one giant plane called the elemental chaos. And then they tossed the abyss at the very bottom just for fun. They're just like, well, we're going to put that
the abyss is there too.
Yeah. In the lore, Asmodeus put it there.
Cool.
He got a hold of the shard of the shard of pure evil or whatever. And
the ruby rod?
Not the ruby rod, although it is part of his ruby rod now that he got it. This is 4E lore, and then he just said, "I'm a god now. Fuck the abyss. I'm gonna put it over here."
My name's Asmo, and I do what I want.
Exactly.
What's this? Okay.
So now we're at 5E. And 5E's managed to both streamline the entire concept of the inner planes and have a bit of each edition in its lore. And like I said before, I honestly think it's the best it's ever been.
Okay, cool.
So the current structure of the elemental planes is the four major elements of air, water, earth, and fire form a ring around the prime. Where they touch, they slowly meld into planes that are kind of halfway between the two. They're not actually different planes. They're just... It's just where terrains kind of change.
Yeah, like an overlap almost.
It's like an overlap.
Like a gradient.
It's like an overlap. I think overlap is a great example or great analogy. So yeah, that's what they are.
I kind of pictured when the string of words you just put together almost sounded like a nursery rhyme, which would be really cool for your campaign. To like,
okay, all right. I'll have to review it in the recording.
I'll have to listen back to the audio, right?
But as an example, there's an area between the plane of air and plane of water where they meet that's called the Frostfell because it's this icy zone. And sometimes it's called the plane of ice or the Frostfell, but it's not an actual plane of existence.
That's
on
Nordic,
its own.
Right? Frostfell?
I don't know. Sounds Nordic, maybe. It sounds fucking
I heard
cool.
in a Marvel movie. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. So that's an example where all the elemental planes meet. There's like a demi-plane, if you will. So the edges of these planes that border with the prime material plane are fairly hospitable. For example, there are earth moats that kind of float about in the plane of air.
Okay.
The plane of water is actually ocean with a surface near the border with islands and whatnot. So
nice.
Basically, they made it so like all the planes are habitable near the prime. But the further that you go out, the more it becomes less and less hospitable until eventually...
That's really cool.
Yeah, until eventually it becomes like it used to be back in the old days where it's like you've journeyed so far into the plane of water, there is nothing but water and you can't breathe anymore and there is no surface.
Yeah.
Now, how that works like on a physically traveling scale, I'm not sure, but...
Well, yeah, it would just... I don't think it needs to work, honestly.
I don't think it needs to work either. Yeah, so there that is. Any questions before we start getting into specifics?
Now I said it doesn't need to work, but now I'm like, well, what if you want to build your campaign and you have to go to the plane of water?
Okay, so this is how I would make it work. Is let's say you're on the plane of water, you're going outwards, and things are getting less hospitable.
Right?
You're on a boat.
Okay.
I would imagine that like it starts getting really wavy. Like where it's like huge tidal waves and like eventually it gets to the point where you can't keep going and you get submerged. And once you get submerged, there's no surface to come back up to.
You get undertowed and all of a sudden
it's just
no matter
water.
How far up you try to swim, there's
exactly.
nothing.
That's
cool.
It's exactly how I would do it.
There's no way out.
Indeed.
Okay.
So let's get into specifics. We're going to start with the elemental plane of air. So the elemental plane of air is an open expanse of winds, cloud, and sky. Near its border with the prime, there are great chunks of floating earth and magic-infused cloud banks that you can actually stand and walk on. And people live there. Storms frequent here. Obviously, it's a plane of air, lots of wind, lots of storms.
Sure. I think in the upper atmosphere, it's like 300 mile per hour winds, like constantly.
Yeah, it's plenty of that stuff going on here in the elemental plane. As a matter of fact, there's a maze of wind currents that like... a web throughout the whole plane that are known as the Labyrinth Wind.
Oh, cool.
And these winds actually form a dangerous highway for flying creatures that link various locations within the plane.
Nice.
So it's like
I'm kind of picturing Finding Nemo, like the EAC.
Yeah, it would be a lot like that. Exactly.
Currents,
you follow the
currents.
current, and there are like locations where you could stop off at. So if you want a hard to get to location, you would have to go off the beaten trail.
Yeah,
off
sure.
the current.
Like
network.
that's where the Aarakocra are like traveling from place to place. They're like hitting those currents.
Exactly. And having like a solid network foundation in a plane that's eternal in all directions is just a nice way for everyone to stay grounded on where the fuck they are in the sky zone. So yeah.
Fuck the elemental plane of air. It's called the sky zone.
Yeah, exactly. So outside of storms and the areas where air meets water or fire, the temperature is generally mild in this area.
Okay, I was going to ask about
it's not
that.
about getting cold or getting hot. It's just nice and mild.
Can I ask like an overworld question real quick?
Yeah, sure.
So like we have a prime material plane that interacts with like celestial bodies like the sun. How do the elemental planes interact with things like the sun or the moon? Do they exist there? Are they like images of?
That's a good.
Are they like a reflection of the prime material?
You're
plane,
asking
kind
a
of?
really good question. I don't exactly have an answer, but basically each of these planes has their own version of the sun or just doesn't. So for example, like in the elemental plane of water, a sun does rise and fall, but it seems to rise and fall directly out of the water, always in the distance. You can never get to it.
Yeah, almost like I'm picturing like the sun isn't there. Like the place where the material plane and the elemental plane of water border is like a mirror that reflects the prime material plane's sun, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of looking at it.
Okay, that would be the only thing that makes sense,
well,
because if you go there, you can't see with no light, and the light comes from the sun.
Right, exactly. And I would say in the element, well, here's the thing though, in the elemental plane of air, there is no place for the sun to set. So I would say either
daytime all day, baby.
One of two things. Yeah, it's either daytime all day and the sun's always up no matter how high you go, or there is no sun, the light's inexplicable. In all directions.
It just is light.
Yeah, exactly. You could honestly do it multiple ways. In the elemental plane of Earth, for example, there is no sky. Well, there is a sky, but there's no atmosphere. It's just dark, starry night above the Earth.
I mean, fire generates light, so like elemental plane of fire, that's not really too much of an issue,
but there
I
is
guess.
actually sunlight in the elemental plane of fire, which we'll get to when we talk about
Interesting.
that.
Okay.
But that's a good question.
Maybe that'll help explain something.
Yeah, maybe it'll give you an epiphany on the subject. So near the outer edge of the plane of air, it just becomes open sky that's only basically inhabitable by elementals because there's nowhere to land.
Okay, yeah.
You know, you can breathe. You'll also fall forever. So yeah, the common inhabitants of the plane of air include the Aarakocra, which we've talked about in our Aarakocra episode, the Jinn, who are the air genies. Lots of genies throughout the elemental planes. They'll get their own episode. Cloud giants live here. Various elementals, genasi live here. Silver dragons like to live here. Supposedly Bahamut has a citadel here somewhere as well.
Right, that's right.
This is a summer vacation place. So he just likes the wind.
Yeah, man, totally. Bahamut loves all things.
So I couldn't find anything on this in any of the 5th edition lore, but in 3rd edition, they establish an idea of subjective directional gravity, where there is no natural gravitational force in the elemental plane of air, but the only gravity that does exist depends on the will of whoever is present. So it's kind of like limbo.
I get you. Yeah, you can kind of manifest the gravity.
Exactly. So I can see.
But Bahamut's palace would have gravity on the floor where you walk, but like normal gravity, probably.
Right? Because he wills it to be so.
Yes.
Right. Although you could probably will it to not be so, because that's just how the plane works.
Oh God, we're getting into the secret territory.
Right.
Your will versus my will.
Right. And maybe it's like that. I could tell the current idea of limbo probably comes from a lot of this elemental plane lore, because if you remember the elemental plane limbo, it was a lot like the elemental chaos.
Yeah, the Gith
Zerai.
Yeah, they're the ones that they manifest like a home there.
Right.
They exist there because they will it to be so. So they have.
Exactly.
I pictured like a big metal fortress, like a big cube,
right?
Almost like the Borg. That was
yeah.
Cool.
That's cool.
So just basically a powerful enough entity, which to say would be like even a mortal would be able to manifest certain qualities of physics in these places.
So the idea here too is that you don't really need wings to fly in the elemental plane of air. You just will the direction of gravity in whatever way you want to go, and that's where you go.
I mean, that could explain light. I need to see, so I will light into existence.
Yeah, that's
true. Or I have dark vision, and it doesn't matter.
And it could be that as well, or that, yes. So the most notable location within the plane of air is the fabled realm of Akka. It's a shining city of silver spires and verdant gardens upon this giant earth moat, and it's ruled by a group known as the Wind Dukes of Akka. They are powerful entities dedicated to both law and good, and they kind of make it their job to stand watch against the elemental evils or the primals. Which we'll talk about the elemental evils one day, and we'll also talk about the primals another day. They'll get their own episodes.
Can you give me an idea real quick of what the elemental evils are? Because I did not know that was
So I'm
a thing.
pretty vague on them, and like I know that they can mean different things depending on your setting or edition.
Okay.
For instance, there is Dune, who is the creator of the Abyss in 4th edition, who was considered the one of the elemental evils, or even I think the elemental evil in 4th edition. And then there's also a 5th edition adventurers called the Princes of the Apocalypse.
Okay.
Where the 4 elemental evils kind of show up.
Oh,
and
wow.
they're like entities.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's ringing a little bit of a bell for me.
Right. I'm really vague on them, so I don't like actually know in this moment. But when we do the episode, obviously,
that gives me a picture of like what they are, though.
Yeah.
So
And then the primals are like the Titans. If you were to look at like Greek mythology, it's like where the gods are like the Olympians. So the primals are like elemental beings of chaos that were born out of the elemental planes, and like they're like the gods of earth and fire and water.
Right.
And they're not big fans of the prime material plane because depending on your lore, they either got tricked or forced into making it.
much like Greek mythology.
Yeah, and then the gods made it permanent, which is like an affront to everything because for them nothing's permanent.
Right. Okay.
But that's
Except for them.
Except for them.
Jerks.
But even they are ever changing.
Okay. Cool.
So as one travels in the plane of air and towards the plane of water, the winds become frigid and tumultuous, and the region becomes known as the Mistral Reach. Here, rain freezes and gales blow hail, and also snow. And all of this hail and snow blow ever further towards the plane of water and into the Frostfell, which is basically an enormous and perhaps infinite glacier of craggy ice.
Oh, cool. Just like a blizzard, like just
into this
trapezing you into this stuff.
Arctic, like Antarctica, basically.
Yeah.
Eternal Antarctica.
The ice continent.
Yeah. And there, white dragons live, yetis, creatures called remorazes, which we've never talked about.
Yeah.
They live in like frosty tundra areas, but they're these gigantic like demon centipedes.
Oh, no.
They're really bizarre looking, but they're cool, and they'll get their own episode.
Okay.
Obviously,
they're like brown dragons, but they're just like...
Yeah, they're a lot like brown dragons, except for insectile.
Yeah, they're just like burrowing through the ice and stuff.
That's exactly it, yeah. Beyond the Frostfell is a frigid ocean choked in icebergs known as the Sea of Ice. Before that eventually just gives way to the elemental plane of water.
Right, okay.
So as a whole... the plane of air is associated with movement, animation, and inspiration and change. The denizens who live here tend to be personality types that reflect those specific attributes.
Got it. Okay.
So yeah, any questions about the elemental plane of air before we get into the elemental plane of water?
I'm good. Let's go.
Okay.
Let's hit it.
So the elemental plane of water is an endless sea that's sometimes called the Sea of Worlds. Near its border with the Prime, it's dotted with islands that rise up to form... or rise up from coral reefs that stretch forever into the depths.
Oh, that's so cool.
There's no bottom to this water. And I think that's important because the elemental plane of water is kind of divided into 2 regions, the shallows and the depths.
Well, that kind of makes sense whether you talk about the abyss getting thrown into this place, because like it just cascades down into one of the layers of the abyss, I guess.
Yeah, you could see it like that. Obviously, that's not how the cosmos are set up anymore. And also...
Yeah, that was 4E,
That was
right?
4E.
Yeah.
And in 4E, the inner planes didn't exist.
Okay.
There was only the elemental chaos.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then like there were sections within the chaos that would like be more one element than the other.
Okay.
So where was I? Oh yeah. So the sky here in the elemental plane of water is blue with a warm golden sun. Though often torrential rains do pour through here. I mean, it's a plane of water. You're going to get a lot of rain.
Precipitation.
Yeah.
Let's go.
So these storms actually can create temporary portals to the material oceans and draw ships and creatures in.
Cool.
Of all 4 planes, the one you're most likely to accidentally end up in is the elemental plane of water.
Yeah,
if you're a
that
ship in a
tidal
storm.
drift, man.
Indeed. So for the most part, this plane is divided into 2 major areas. Like I said before, you have the shallow waters known as the Sea of Light, and you have the deeper waters known as the darkened depths.
Let me reach into my bag of references. Oh shit, it's Pirates of the Caribbean. It's back. Do you remember that shit they do? What in the 3rd one, where they flip the ship upside down?
Yeah, World's End.
Oh
yeah.
man, that's so cool. That's some elemental. That's how you break into the elemental plane of water in my universe.
Sure, I like that.
Hands
That'd
down.
be pretty
That's
cool.
just the way you do it.
Sure.
Fuck whatever you're going to say.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. Let's go.
So the Sea of Light is named for the fact that sunlight reaches here. It's inhabited by countless aquatic creatures, fish, cephalopods, crustaceans, mollusks,
Whales.
like the ocean. Yeah, whales. I think a cephalopod. I think that's a no. Wait a minute. What's a cephalopod? A cephalopod. I think whales and dolphins are cephalopods. No.
I mean, you can just read the YouTube comments after this.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they'll
There's a
blast
marine
me for
biologist
being-
that's super pissed at us right now.
Where was I? Oh yeah. But also there are humanoid type creatures. So tritons live here, sea elves, merfolk, water genasi. But first and foremost, water genies known as Marids dwell here.
So wait, water genasi, I thought were like prime material people. They
Often are, but you have to remember the genasi are descendant from genies, and genies live in the inner planes.
Oh yeah,
so
okay, sure.
They can and do dwell here.
Sure, okay. So
Right.
what about tritons?
What about tritons?
Are they here?
Yeah, I just said they were here.
Oh shit,
Yeah,
sorry.
No, it's okay. Yeah, tritons, sea elves.
There are sea. Oh yeah, there are sea elves.
There are sea elves. Yeah,
Oh, man.
merfolk. They live here. They're all different variations of aqua people.
Got it.
Yeah. So the Marids, who are the water genies, they serve as the distant and aloof stewards of the waters. Like they rule, but like they also just fucking don't talk to anybody.
Okay.
The emperor of all Marids, he rules from a citadel called the Citadel of 10,000 Pearls, which is, as you could imagine, an opulent palace made of pearls.
Yeah,
So,
totally.
Also coral, but mostly pearls.
Yeah. There's just in the backyard. There's just a big old pile of like clamshells.
I think you mean oysters.
Yes, I do mean oysters. Sorry, marine biologists, that we've thoroughly pissed off at this point.
Oh man.
No, they're. What was the other one? Storm giants. They're aquatic, right?
Yeah, and I would say storm giants could probably live here. I couldn't find them listed anywhere, but they're a good candidate for sure.
Okay.
Storm giants are kind of that weird where they live both in the sky and under the water in the prime.
Yeah, I remember that.
So I could see them also being in the elemental plane of air, but they also weren't mentioned on any of the lists in any of the editions that I could find. So,
Okay.
But yeah, totally.
Sick.
So yeah, the darkened depths hold aquatic life of a much more sinister nature. So like krakens, leviathans, merrow, which are like basically like abyssal mermaids.
Oh shit. Okay.
Aboliths live down there.
All right,
you
I was
know,
about to ask.
basically dark, evil fish.
Yeah.
Other exotic creatures prefer this plane as home, such as bronze dragons and dragon turtles. Dragon turtles are obviously ocean dwellers, and then bronze dragons love coastal areas. So they love that area on the border with the prime.
Okay.
With all those islands, that's a bronze dragon wonderland.
Nice.
They love it. Yeah.
Are copper dragons into this kind of thing?
I believe
too?
copper dragons like desert, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, they don't like that moisture. I was gonna say if you saw like a copper dragon, is it copper that I'm thinking of where they turn green?
Yeah, copper.
Yeah.
Oxidates or whatever.
I mean,
yeah.
that would be a cool visual, but
That would be a cool visual, but yeah, no, it's bronze dragons that love
They probably
the,
not
the
into
ocean
that.
areas. No, probably not. I know blue dragons also like coastal areas, so I could see an argument for them living here as well. Although they would fight the bronze dragons.
I thought blue dragons were a desert thing.
Both. They like the desert and they like the coast.
They're
Yeah.
very much the same.
They just like sand, I guess.
Sand is cool,
There it is.
unless you're Anakin Skywalker.
Unless you're Anakin Skywalker. So the most well-known location of the plane of water amongst mortals of the prime is an infamous island called the Isle of Dread. The Isle of Dread. It's a large vegetated island surrounded by strange tides and portals to the prime. Storms have wrecked many mortal ships onto its shores.
I played a game in the Isle of Dread once.
Yeah, I mean, I just called it the Isle of Dread. It wasn't the Isle
Oh,
of Dread.
really?
Yeah, I just was like, Isle of
disappoint
Dread
inside of
sounds
me.
cool. You know what? It was, Brian. It was the Isle of Dread the whole time.
I've played a game in the Isle of Dread.
Indeed, you have. So as the plane nears the elemental plane of Earth, the waters become thick with salt and soil, and this seemingly endless expanse is known as the silt flats.
Okay.
The silt flats continue to thicken before giving way to a giant swamp called the Swamp of Oblivion, or as some call it, the Plain of Ooze.
God, a lot of fucking great names.
Oh yeah, no, like I really love this juicy ass lore from
yeah.
5e. It's fucking really cool. So the Swamp of Oblivion is this vast swamp that's populated by hags, mosquitoes, and twisted trees. A few settlements of any kind of permanent stand here due to the fact that it's a bottomless mud pit that's constantly swallowing everything in it.
Ooh.
So like what structures do stand here like are built on these mighty stilts, but even they will eventually just sink.
Isn't one of the 9 hells a big swamp?
Maybe I don't remember.
Gosh,
yes. The one with Mammon is a giant swamp.
Oh, that's right.
It's always
like a big
swallowing
bog.
everything.
Yeah, it reminded me of that.
And it's very much like that. Hags obviously love it. No one else really likes it. So all objects here, like I said, eventually get swallowed, and only the most powerful of artifacts reemerge. And even those, it takes them a century to show back up again.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So some people who are trying to get rid of like a artifact of evil will go here and just throw it in and be like, all right, we're cool for a century.
See you in 100 years or so, Mug.
Indeed.
Bye.
Buffering the swamp and the elemental plane of Earth are these mighty hills of muddy soil called the Mud Hills, and these hills are constantly eroded by the swamp and refreshed by the plane of Earth.
Okay, cool. It just like spills into. It's just like a constant landslide.
Exactly.
Ugh.
That's exactly right. And before we move on, we are going to take a short rest.
Short rest time. Hey everybody, welcome to the part of the episode we're not talking about the last thing we're talking about. We're talking about a new thing, and it comes from our hearts. It's love. That's where love lives. It's its own planar. Sorry, we're not talking about the last thing. We're talking about love. We love you. Right, Will?
Indeed we do.
Tell him again, Will.
I love you.
Say it like you mean it.
I love you.
The first time sounded like you meant it, so
Okay.
that was good enough.
Okay.
The second one that was a falsie for sure.
Okay, for sure.
I also love you very much. If you can hear the sound of my voice, which if you're playing the thing, hopefully your volume's up. If not, that's cool too. I love you. We have some people that we want to love in particular, or tell them that
We have some particular love.
I want to say a very special thank you to Matt Young,
Thank you, Matt.
Russ Moore.
Thank you, Russ.
Russ Moore, hey, what's up? And Kelsey Malone.
Thank you, Kelsey Malone.
There it is. And Mr. Bubbles 0311.
Thank you, Mr. Bubbles.
0311.
0311.
All of you have become patrons.
Welcome to the cult.
Welcome to the Dungeoncast cult. $50 patrons get imbued with magic warlock powers.
Indeed.
Anyway, that's all I got. You got anything?
I don't get anything.
Yo, let's get back to the show.
Back to the show.
We've returned.
Indeed, we have.
Do you think the shark from Jaws is like a demon that gets reborn in the elemental plane of water when it gets killed, and that's why they keep making Jaws sequels?
Oh, definitely.
Okay,
Absolutely, I would say.
Yeah.
All right, let's leave behind these waters and move on to the elemental plane of Earth.
We should.
So the elemental plane of Earth is in some ways actually the least hospitable to life of all the inner planes. And this is due to its opposition to the elemental plane of air, meaning there's no air to breathe here.
Oh.
So best of luck.
Great, cool.
I mean, there's a spell for that, but that being said, if you just get dropped here, you're in trouble.
So it's really hard to picture, there is no space for you to exist. So imagine yourself in like a safety bunker, like an apocalypse bunker, and then just imagine the bunker was just the earth and you were in it.
There you go.
Yeah, and now you're just part of the earth, I guess.
Well, that's kind of how it is on the outskirts of the plane, but nearer the border, it's a little bit more hospitable. So
Like a big desert or something? Like a big desert or something?
No, not really. So the elemental plane of Earth is considered to be a series of impossibly high mountains whose peaks are crowned by an airless night sky.
What?
Few ever actually see these peaks, though, because the easiest way to get to the plane is via caves and caverns. And there are just obviously webs of caves and caverns throughout the endless Earth.
I mean, you need a fucking spacesuit to go here, pretty much.
Yeah,
it sounds
basically.
like.
It's basically like going to the surface of Mercury.
Oh, God.
Yeah. There.
There it is.
There it is. The elemental plane of Earth. It's just Mercury.
It's just Mercury, but not as hot.
Right. So the plane of Earth contains minerals, stones, gems, metals, clays, and soils of all kinds in infinite amounts. Indeed, the City of Jewels, which is like probably the most famed location on the elemental plane of Earth, it and it also exists in the largest known cavern on the plane. It's made of nothing but precious gems and precious metals, like truly infinite amounts of these things.
I mean, self-explanatory, really.
Yeah. City of jewels.
Yeah, dude. Stalagmites and stalactites, they're not like muddy calcium or whatever. No, it's just gems. It's just
gems,
rupees all the way
gems
down.
for days. So the city lies at the heart of a maze of tunnels that are called the Sevenfold Mazework. And it's ruled by the tyrannical Tao, who are earth genies.
Okay.
And they're fucking assholes.
Aren't most genies assholes?
Yeah, but the air ones are kind of cool, and the fire ones you can deal with because at least they're lawful.
Okay.
I find the Tao to be the most despicable, if you ask me, but whatevs. So
I think they'd be the most down to earth.
Yeah. So the Tao live in lavish palaces, and they enslave everyone they meet. You know, people, elementals, doesn't matter. They enslave them and they use them to build their cities, serve them food, and search out new veins of precious metals to mine.
This is my favorite topic on the Dungeoncast.
Here we go.
Subjugation.
I mean, they're not the only ones. The Ifriti do that too, and we'll talk about that. But the Tao, it's like absolute.
Okay.
So there's actually an enchantment on the City of Jewels that alerts the entire Tao population immediately if a visitor steals even a single stone, and theft is punishable by death or slavery. Obviously, that's always the other option.
Just the two Earth Genie are like, we could kill this guy, and be like, come on, man, why would we kill him? Think about it.
But slavery.
To the mines.
To the mines with you. So the inhabitants of the plane of Earth are, of course, the Tao. Also, stone giants live here, basilisks, gargoyles, zorns, which are these. How do I explain zorns? They're like these weird, earthy looking beings. They have two legs. They're short and squat, but they're actually pretty big and burly. They have a single eye in their like chest cavity.
Okay.
And then rather than have a head, it's like these two like claw, like pincer.
Okay.
I think
so. Mike Wazowski, but the Pokemon.
Yeah.
Pincer.
If you took Mike Wazowski and fused it with a pincer and made its skin made of rock.
Dope. Okay.
You have a
so
Zorn.
Mike Wazowski, Pincer, and Golem. Just smash them together.
Bam.
And there you
Done.
got it.
Done.
A Zorn?
Zorns, yeah.
Okay. Is when you said basilisk, I picture Harry Potter immediately. Am I correct? Okay.
No, not at all. They're like six-legged giant lizards, like six-legged iguanas that can turn you to stone with their eyeballs.
Okay, I kind of knew about the stone thing for D&D, like the basilisk gaze. You don't want to
exactly
with that.
Exactly right.
All right.
There are these stone elemental beings called the Galabdur. They basically look like boulders with faces with little legs and little arms.
Okay, so Golem.
Yeah, so Golem, yeah, or Graveler, yeah, for sure. And of course, other earth elementals. So as this plane nears the elemental plane of fire, lava begins to seep from the earth, and sulfur will reek throughout the caverns. And here is where the Tao will build their mighty furnaces, where that they use to process and forge and smelt metals.
Okay, cool.
And then further on, this area gives way to the plane of magma, or also called the Fountains of Creation, which is a vast chain of active volcanoes. And this area is inhabited mostly by red dragons, fire giants, Azures, which are like, how do I explain an Azure? So, picture a dwarf.
I'm picturing a dwarf.
Made of metal.
Sick. So I'm just picturing Metal Mario from Mario 64.
But its face isn't like, okay, its head isn't really a head. Its head is like a metal mask with just fire coming out of the other end from the back end. And it has like this mane of fire.
So if you took Metal Mario, made him dwarfy, and then made his head Typhlosion.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. That's an Azure.
We're Pokemon heavy right now.
Or an Azer or an Azure. They'll get their own episode.
Okay.
Also, some Earth elementals live here. Any questions about the elemental plane of Earth before we move on?
Well, hold on. What's an Earth element? Like, we haven't really talked about the elemental creatures themselves. Like, when you say Earth elemental, is it like a big walking plateau or something?
They come in many shapes and sizes, but for the most part, when someone says like an Earth elemental or air elemental, they just mean like a very vaguely humanoidish shaped thing made completely of that element.
Right. Okay.
So like. Air elementals are invisible. But
I've looked through the monster manual, and I've actually looked through Tome of Beasts, which is like the third party thing.
Yeah.
That one has some cool Earth elementals where it's just like a big walking plateau, which is really cool.
Yeah, that shit's cool. And that's the thing. You can do whatever you want with them. They can be shaped however you want them to be shaped.
Sick. Okay.
But generally speaking, when you just say the word elemental, just picture like a humanoidish shaped thing made of pure element.
Okay, cool.
So there it is.
I'm Onyx with legs.
Yeah, again, humanoid is shit.
Yeah, arms. So, fuck it.
All right. So elemental plane of fire. So elemental plane of fire is made up mostly, so near its border, it's basically this expanse of cinder and embers crossed by rivers of lava. So it's this weird lava desert wasteland.
Yeah, okay.
Area.
It's dry. It's so hot. It's so much fire based that it's like drying everything up and turning it into embers.
Yeah, there you go. This area is called the Cinder Wastes, and it's the biggest section of the elemental plane of fire. It's where all the cool shit happens, anyways.
It's where all the cool shit happens.
Roving bands of salamanders dwell here. Now, salamanders aren't like.
No, yeah, I got you. It's just like regular salamanders. I always thought they were special.
No, they're like these giant serpentine / lizard-like flame monsters.
Yeah, don't they have a big like flaming frill?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, yeah, I've seen that.
They're pretty cool.
Sick.
So they dwell here, as well as more Azures in their bronze fortresses.
Okay.
The sun sits in the sky zenith at all times here, waxing and waning with the passage of time.
Ooh.
At noon, it's at its brightest, shining white and hot. At midnight, it dims to a deep red, bathing the entire plane in like a twilight of crimson.
Kind of like an eclipse almost.
Yeah. I thought this was one of the cooler descriptions in all my research. I was like, that's fucking cool.
Like, of course the sun is here. It's a giant ball of fire.
Indeed. And it's just always there.
Just always there.
It's only burning slightly less at some times.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So near its border with the prime, the temperature is that of a hot desert. Water can be found here, but it's incredibly rare. The air is breathable, but it's also smoky and full of cinders.
So is it breathable? I mean, you
It's
could breathe
just-
anything.
You can
really.
breathe it. It's just going to give you cancer eventually.
Yeah, I could breathe hot dust.
Yeah,
you know, like
exactly.
I could breathe it.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
The point is, you can breathe here. It's not pleasant.
It's not
in
good
any
to
way,
breathe
shape,
here.
or form.
Yeah, okay. You need like a wet cloth to breathe through.
Right. So the plane of fire houses what's probably the most famous location in all of the inner planes, the fabled city of Brass. The city of Brass, which is named for the fact that most of its structures are made out of brass, is a metropolis on the shores of an ocean of magma known as the Sea of Fire. Ooh. It's ruled by the fire genies known as the Ifrits. The Grand Sultan of the Ifriti uses his magic to subdue the effects of the plane of fire, making the city much more habitable to visitors, which is pretty important because the city is a huge interplanar hub full of exotic trade markets.
I mean, yeah, you built a city, you probably want visitors.
Exactly. Besides the Ifriti, visiting traders and Azures dwell in the city. They're the two other major denizens. There's also so you have the Ifriti, you have the Azures, and you have exotic trade markets coming in. And there's two other major denizens. Number one, slaves, plenty of them, almost as much as the Tao. Number two, devils.
Ooh.
The Ifriti have a lot of contracts and relationships with Beator due to the many portals that link the two places and the lawful evil nature of both the Ifriti and devil kind.
Okay.
So yeah, they do a lot of deals with the devil.
Okay, so that's like the Nine Hells side hustle is the elemental plane of fire.
Basically, yeah, it's their extension in like more like closer to the
they need
material.
hands everywhere.
Exactly,
they need fingers in all the pies.
And the city of Brass is a hugely under the influence of Beator.
So if you link yourself to the elemental plane of fire, you've inherently linked yourself to the elemental planes as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay. Yeah. So the city of Brass will get its own episode one day.
Okay.
Other inhabitants of the fire plane include brass and gold dragons, hellhounds, fire genasi, fire bats, and fire snakes.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Legend of Zelda, fire bats. There
Indeed.
you go. Got it.
Yeah. So across the Sea of Fire and beyond its many obsidian isles is a towering firestorm called the Great Conflagration. And it's sometimes called the Plain of Ash. It's a nearly impassable wall of ash and fire that borders and completely separates the plane of air from the plane of fire, which is good because they don't like each other. Plane of air, plane of fire, not friends. Things in the plane of fire tend to be lawful evil. Things in the plane of air tend to be chaotic good.
Right.
So, yeah. Any questions about the plane of fire?
Great Conflagration. Still processing. Impassable. So you basically.
I say impassable, but like obviously if you're a fire elemental, yeah, it's no problem.
Well, yeah, but like impassable for most. Yeah. You'd have to do some crazy bullshit to get through it.
Yeah. Another, you know what? I've been leaving something out. Another being that dwells kind of throughout all these planes, they're called mephits.
Oh, yeah.
They're like imps, and they're all made out of para elements or quasi elements. So you have like smoke, ash, ice, fog, steam.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And they dwell within all the various elements, and they tend to be nasty little critters.
Now I'm pulling deep right now.
Yeah.
But do you remember when we did the wizard episode? I'm sure you did because you did that cool little read. Remember when we used to do like little sound clips at the beginning?
Yeah.
Before we ran out of time to do cool stuff.
Right.
Wasn't that a method?
What?
The air elemental being that like the wizard called on? It was like a fog thing?
It wasn't a mephit, if I remember correctly. I think it was just an enslaved air elemental.
Oh, it was just a straight up one?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But that's a really deep dig, and I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any questions about the elemental plane? Planes.
It's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
The material plane, I mean, obviously there's interaction
Yeah, definitely.
there. Can we talk a little bit about how much interaction, like where are we drawing the line, and like how often are these beings, setting, abiding, like what is transferring in through those walls and stuff?
More than the outer plane in the material planes, but less than the echoes in the material plane. So that'd be Shadowfell and Feywild.
Got it.
So basically, it works kind of the same way as with the Shadowfell or the Feywild, where like the more like two locations are, the more likely they are to be overlap.
Okay.
So like, for instance, the temporal portals that are sucking ships towards the Isle of Dread, it's because they're out in the ocean and the storm hits.
Yeah.
And it's a reflection of what's going on in the elemental plane of water.
Okay.
So maybe places in the sky might get you into the elemental plane of air.
Okay.
Deep beneath the ground.
Like maybe if your setting has like sky cities, that might be linked to elemental plane of air.
Yeah, I could see places in the Underdark getting linked to the elemental plane of earth.
Okay.
Volcanic layers and whatnot, maybe linked to the elemental plane of fire.
You went down the wrong. You farted in the Underdark and you had to run away from something, and then like you got all of a sudden I'm just crushed.
And now you're a Dow slave.
Yeah, or I'm a Dow slave.
So yeah, with that being said, I think we can draw this episode to an end and get ready for our long rest.
Yeah, we short rested already. Watch yourself.
We did short rest already.
It's time to long rest. We need all our HP,
tired.
all our dailies back. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go.
So let's talk about some stuff.
Okay, what do you want to talk about?
I want to talk about something that you've been doing mostly.
TDC Plays?
Yeah, let's talk about TDC Plays first.
So if you like video games and you like us here at the Dungeoncast, you should go check out our sister channel, TDC Plays, where we here at the Dungeoncast play video games. As a matter of fact, we're getting ready to get some Smash going because I just got a capture card.
At last.
So no more running games through my potato of a laptop.
Yeah, it's time to do it the big boy way.
Indeed.
So as of the official release of this recording, we'll have played some stuff probably.
I would say so, definitely. So there's going to be some Smash. There's already like 20-something episodes of our Pokemon Nuzlocke run. Outlast is coming close to its finish, and it's a heck of a finish.
I think we'll be editing the finale today, won't we?
Yeah, probably. I think so.
Okay.
We're getting ready for some Undertale, possibly. We're getting ready for some Shovel Knight pretty soon. So we got a lot of cool stuff coming down the pipeline.
Man. I'll smash that Mega Man shit out fast.
Nice.
I'll have history on it and everything.
So yeah, if you want to check that out, please go subscribe. It would really help us out.
Yeah, it would help us out a lot. Sister channel, link to the Dungeoncast.
Indeed.
Let's talk about Super Quest Saga because the last episode that we recorded was an interlude episode, and it was so fucking cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to do. A lot of world building, a lot of role play.
My favorite game to play so far, probably in competition with the episode we recorded right before that, which was the Cyber Troll.
Oh yeah, that was cool.
Both of those are really fucking cool. I had a great time.
Yeah, me too.
Will killed it, and Freeland and Jake killed it too.
Indeed, they did.
They all did like special scenes. So
yeah, everyone got a cool scene.
Yeah.
It's a space adventure game. You guys are in a futuristic, galaxy-spanning world. You guys just made it to an asteroid city called Outlaws Horizon, and exciting stuff's happening. So if you guys want to check it out, if you guys are interested in how we play D&D, especially set in this weird sci-fi world, check it out.
Yeah, we got a warlock, a paladin, a druid, and a dungeon master. Get in there.
Indeed. So
what else do we got?
I don't know. That's all I got.
Patreon. Flashbang and Surgeon has come to a conclusion. It was really cool. Thanks to Jake and Steve for doing that. I know the people on Patreon are really excited. We are going to continue the adventure. We are going to have a 2 to 3 episode interlude. It's probably going to be more like 2. And we are going to do a new season. The new season's going to be recorded at a slow capacity though, because we've had some scheduling changes with some of our players, etc. But it will continue. Hopefully we can supplement something on Patreon in its place if it does get bogged down. to such a pace where I feel like it's necessary. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for the support on that. It was really, really awesome to see people be into that. And it was a lot of fun. So expect some of our other regulars on the Dungeoncast to show up in that universe. If you want to go check out our Patreon, we've got a lot of cool stuff there, mostly live games, some bonus content. Go check it out for sure. Are we still doing mugs?
We're still doing mugs. It's mugs all year long, man.
If you want a mug that says something that we don't say on the show anymore.
Very specific phrase.
It's a very specific phrase that we said for like 100 episodes, and then we don't for reasons.
And now we don't.
But we will still sell you a mug.
We'll still make money off it, damn it.
Well, I mean, do we? Because
really.
nah, yeah.
But you can get a cool mug.
You can get a cool mug as a gift if you come and hit a certain patronage in our Patreon. So thank you guys very much. Find us on Twitter at the Dungeoncast. Find us on Instagram, the Dungeoncast. Also, you can find us, if you want to email us, you can do that. You can email us about ad space. You can email us about anything you want, really.
Yeah, you just say, hey.
Yeah, you could just say hi. Literally, send me an email that says hi. Me and Will will both see it. thedungeoncast@gmail.com. Do we have anything, other social media to plug?
Did you say the Twitter?
I said the Twitter, I said the Instagram, and I said the email.
I think we're good.
We're good. Let's call it a game.
We're going to call it a game.
Bye.
We'll talk to you guys later.
The Dungeoncast.